Hello, my name is Cheri Brunner Daschle, and I'm here today representing the Tread of Pioneers Museum. We are collecting oral interviews for a project called Tales of the Old Junior High. There will be interviews of staff, teachers, and administrators who worked at Steamboat Springs Junior High School on 7th Street in the 1970s, before Steamboat Springs Middle School was built on the Strawberry Park campus on Amethyst Street. Please tell me your name and what your position was in those years that you worked on 325 7th Street.
Okay, my name is Bob Harris, Robert, and we came to the district in 1965, and in 1965 the high school was in the one building, and there was a building where the field is now. That was they had industrial arts there, and they had the junior high school, and that was in 65. And then the high school moved out of that building in the middle of that year of 65, and they moved up to the location where the high school is now, up there above. And they moved in the middle of the year, and then we moved out of that old building at Christmas vacation and went into it was the old high school. Because I taught science the first half of the year. You may remember this, you were a student, 8th grade student. And the middle of the year, then we moved over to what was the old high school, and the science room that I taught in was upstairs. And I taught all 8th, 7th, and 8th grade science. So that was 6 sections. And then I taught 1 hour of PE. And I think at that time we had just one math teacher. No, they had one 6th grade teacher that taught all the 6th grade, I think. And then they had the other one, there was one math teacher, one science teacher, one English teacher, one history teacher. And that year, when it started in 65. And then it was a couple of years, I don't remember when they tore down the old building and made it a practice field. But it was shortly after that. It was before the 70s.
Do you remember why they tore it down?
Yeah, they tore it down because it was almost, I think, what wasn't meeting state standards. So they demolished that building and made that practice field. And it was, that's where we did. Now, when I started, I was a science teacher, PE teacher, and then I coached all junior high sports. I was the head football, basketball coach at the junior high, at the junior high then, and I helped Carl Romano. He had wrestling at the junior high and track, and he was the head coach in those 2 sports. And then Carl, when they moved up to the other building, I think he only did that for 2 years, because our football practice, we had to go down to the rodeo grounds in junior high. And we went down to the old junior high, down at the field where the rodeo grounds for football practice. And my first year that I had football, I got 40-some kids out of 2 classes. There were over 20 kids playing football, and I didn't have an assistant. So Clarence Gardner, the high school principal, came down and helped coach a little of the 8th grade football. And then that year in basketball, Jack Miller was the history teacher, and they hired him as my assistant in basketball at the junior high level, because we had a lot of kids, and we were getting over 20 kids a class, boys, out for sports. And then the same thing, it was always wrestling was big then, of course, and of course you remember that. And then track was, there wasn't much track, but one thing that I did all the way through, I coached track. I coached junior high track for 34 years at Steamboat. I never gave that up. So
At both levels, at high school, oh,
just
junior high?
just
the junior
middle
high.
school.
And what did you coach at the high school, or did you coach?
Yeah. Well, I coached 2 years. 2 years I was the head junior high basketball coach, and then the high school coach left, and then I got the high school basketball job. 68. And then in 68, that's when we had, as the 7th graders in basketball was Dave Combs, Chris Kearns. I can't remember the names of the rest of them, but they were 7th graders. In the 8th grade, there was the Cook twins, Mike and Steve Cook, and Larry Snackenberg were the kids in basketball that went on to play high school basketball. Anyway, I got that job in 68, and those kids that were freshmen then would have been Snackenbergs and the Cook twins, and then later on that year up in the high school, 2 more players came through, Rod Brubaker in your class and Tom Powell, and they came in, and then that was the nucleus of that team that it took us a couple of years to get things off the ground. And then so I coached high school basketball till, well, that's when they were talking about having an assistant principal at the middle school after about in the middle 70s, 74, 75. And so they were talking about, and so I kind of had to make a choice. You're going to keep coaching high school, or you're going to coach basketball, or you're going to go into administration. So I made the choice that I gave up the basketball. And my assistant that year was Kelly Meek, and then he took the basketball job, and then the history of that.
But before that happened, didn't your team win the championship?
Yeah, in 1971. Mm-hmm. But it started in 70, your class, with those 5 kids. The starters in 70 were Rod Brubaker, Tim Powell, Chris Kearns, David Combs, and Randy Green. Barry Neese came in on the bench some, so did Trent Dietrich. And then in 70, that year, we only lost 3 games. And then in 71, we lost 3 games, but we won the state title. And we had to go play, we lost 3 games to Glenwood in 1971, and they were all at Glenwood. And the only thing I'll say, this is kind of tacky, but Chris Kearns never finished the game in Glenwood Springs. And he was our center. He would foul out. They had him sitting on the bench. So we lost 3 down there, but when they came up and played us here, we beat them by 15. So anyway, then we got down to state and had a real hot state tournament. Well, you had to go, that was the first. In 70, you had to win the league, and there was only 1 representative from this side, and we won it. We beat, I think we beat Glenwood at Craig to go to state. And then we went to state and lost 2. We lost the first one, and then we lost a consolation game. And then, so that was it. So we lost, the only other game we lost that year was to Hayden. We played at Hayden, and they had a real good team that went to state, I think in 70 and 71. There's a guy by the name of Harris down there was coach, Jim Harris. And so anyway, they, it was a good 2 years. And then I stayed on 3 years of mediocre seasons, and then I had to make the choice, I think 3 more years. I think I coached 3 more years, and then that's when the opportunity, Bud had already given me a release time for 1 period of, I think when Carl Young That's when it was. When Carl Young came to the middle school, and then he picked up 7th and 8th grade science. And then I became the PE teacher. John Olson they had 3 or 4 people teaching PE for 2 years there, I think. And then we went into, he released me one period, and then it kind of grew and grew till as long as we were down in that building, really, because I was teaching by the time we left there, and I think 82 maybe, we moved out of that building. We moved in the spring because we stayed there till we could move out to the campus where the middle school is now. And that's when the change was, we were no longer a junior high, we became a middle school.
And what did that mean?
What that meant was the philosophy coming in then was all the old pattern in the junior high was you were just the junior high, like it says. You had your academic, and it was all just academic. And then the middle school, they wanted more collaboration and bringing teams. And that's why we started that team idea out there, well, before Bud left. We started in the late 80s, because we moved in, I think it was 83. I know it was 83. Michelle, my daughter, was the first class that went all 3 years at the middle school. And she just remembers being a little kid and playing. I always had them in the gym with me down here, the old building. And she remembers going over there, and she remembers my office that she kept clean quite a bit of the time.
Was that office down by the gym?
Yeah, it was by the gym. I didn't have an office in the old building. As assistant principal.
You didn't?
It was down there on the stage. And it was a coach's office, and that's where I had a few kids for discipline down there.
What year did you become assistant principal?
It was probably where assistant, it was when I had just, and I think it was late 70s. I can't tell you the year, I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was the late 70s because it was when he had been giving me released time. I think I lost a period one year, and then more and more students. I remember, I don't know, how big was your class?
Maybe 80 something.
80 something, and then that got to where we had, I know when my kids went through, they were, especially Greg was 125.
Yeah.
When he graduated in the 90s, all of those classes were 100. And then the biggest population we ever had at the middle school that I remember while I was there was the year that the class ahead of Michelle's class, she graduated in 89, and the class above her was the biggest class that we ever had at junior high. But when they were 8th graders, that class, well, then that's when we had 500 kids at the middle school.
At the old or the new?
We never had 500 down there, but maybe 450.
Did we? Somebody said they remembered 325, but maybe by the time.
Well, I bet you by the time we moved we moved in 83. I'm pretty sure at the end of the 70s we're close to 400, because that class, and then they had some bigger ones after that. I'll bet you your boys were in bigger classes than 125.
Yeah, I think so.
Because that's all I remember.
How did you and Billy you grew up in Fowler, both of you, right?
Right.
And how did you end up with a job in Steamboat? Because she worked here too, right?
Yeah,
For years
well,
and years.
I'll tell you what, we got married in 65. First year, I got out of college a year before we got married. I graduated from Adams State with a BA in 64. Summer of 64. And then I went and taught 1 year out at Arapahoe out on the Eastern Plains. 1 year. And then we got married that summer in June. And then after we got married, it was later June we got married. On our honeymoon, we were out looking for jobs.
Oh,
And so we had an interview at Central City, and we interviewed there. Then I had an interview at Glenwood Springs, and I was supposed to have an interview at Rangeley, but we drove up to Craig and was looking at that country, and so I didn't drive all the way to Rangeley, but we got back to Craig, and I called the principal at Rangeley and said I don't want to interview. Didn't want to go out there. I was already been on the planes, out nowhere. What's ironic about it? My daughter taught in Rangeley.
And how many games did you coach in Rangeley?
Oh, a lot of athletes. Well, I was always down there for at least 2 track meets a year on junior high track, and then I don't know, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because I remember in high school they were in our league all those years that I coached. Because then they got smaller and Steamboat got bigger. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll bet you when John was playing, the Steamboat was in the 3A classification, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, I think they were up there a couple. Because when I first started coaching here in Steamboat, we were the same class where I came from. You know, they said the population was 1,200, mm-hmm. and that's about what we got right now in Fowler, Colorado. It's never grown, and it won't ever grow. It'll get less. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we were in the same classification, and that was, when I was coaching high school basketball, there were only 3 classifications in the state. It's AAA, AA, and A. They only had the 3 classifications, and we were to win that AA, we were one of the smaller schools in that classification. We won it. It was 300 and some kids then. And I know that when, I think it was just, I don't remember exactly 300, but we were one of the smallest schools at the state tournament in that classification. But anyway, and then she started changing. You know, the population got bigger, added more teachers, and then that building wasn't. Remember, we had the remodeling projects where we built the 2 classes out there on the field. There are 3 classrooms that later became a district office. Yeah. They had the modular out there for the district office for, I don't know, a couple of years. Yeah. And the district office wasn't up here. They had it when the first high school moved up to the present location. They had the district office up there.
Yeah, the little modular.
And then they put the modular up there, and then they moved. When we moved, they had that modular up above the football field, or the practice field, and that's where the district office was for. Well, when they first went up there, it was in the high school. George Sauer had a desk for a while in the present high school, and then they moved it up there. They moved him out of there.
What do you remember about that old building, about the old junior high, or even the one before it? You know, teaching in that, I guess it was on the front of the building, it says Steamboat Springs School. So it looks like it was an elementary before Soda Creek was built. And then it was the junior high before they tore it down. What do you remember about that building itself? Didn't you and Bud teach? Bud taught social studies?
No, I'll tell you, the first year, I think Bud, the first year, might have had, when he was going to become the principal, he had one section, and we taught in the old junior high building, that old building there that they condemned. I'm sure that's what it was. Yeah. And Carl Romano had his shop over there. They had shop, and Bud had I think Bud taught some,
like
he taught some, 1 or 2 sections of, I think he had 1 or 2 sections of, he might have had 3 sections. And he might have had that the whole year but anyway, when we moved, then he became the principal. Okay. Because Clarence Gardner's, he hired me. I didn't meet Bud until we were getting ready to start school. And then Bud and I always laugh about it. George, when we came back, remember I said I didn't take the job at Rangeley. And how did I get to Steamboat? We came back through Craig, and we came in Steamboat. We came in here from Craig, got in here, got a room at the Night's Rest, still open down there, Night's Rest Motel, and we just liked the town. We drove through and just liked it. And I asked the lady that ran the Nights Rest Motel, don't remember her name. I said, who is the superintendent of schools? She told me. I got on the phone, talked to Mr. Sauer, and the year before that they had a big turnover in the district. There was some major turnover. And so, because when I went anyway, we interviewed with Mr. Sauer, and it was a place here we had by the 1st of August that year, and we came up here late June, early July, we had 2 contracts where they'd give Billy a job and me a job. And they're both identical as about, I think the thing that wasn't identical, Billy wouldn't teach PE. Because she was the first elementary PE teacher elementary PE teacher. And here, because George Sauer had her start elementary PE for up at Soda Creek. Mm-hmm. And so we both got a job here, and so we had a contract here, or one out in Burlington, Colorado. I'd already been on the plains, lived on the plains my whole life. We came to the mountains, and we liked the town, and that's how we got here.
And Billy taught for 30, 35 years?
No, Billy ended up teaching, I think she only taught for 20 years because she taught 5 years, and then the kids were born, so she stayed at home with the kids till they went to school. And then Pat Cunningham took her job up at Soda Creek, and then when they expanded and had the new building out there, and that would have been 82 or something like the same thing, when they moved, having 2 elementary schools. Well, Pat Cunningham took the job out there, and then needed a part-time teacher up at Soda Creek, so Billy went back to Soda Creek because I think she was out 10 years.
Okay.
10 years that she didn't, well, I know it was because I don't think the kids ever, we didn't even hire a babysitter. I mean, because she took care of the kids, had the kids until they got into elementary school, and then we were here for 55 years.
Do you remember what your salary was when you first started teaching?
Yeah,
Here.
I remember that I got a little bit more than Billy, like something, I don't know, it was less than mine was about $6,000 a year. 65, and that was with all coaching 4 sports, and you got a little for that.
Teaching and coaching 4 sports.
Teaching and coaching, you got a little more for the coaching. They didn't pay that much. I mean, I think about a couple $100. It wasn't much, but I mean it's relative. You can make that dollar last a little more then, and if we made it fine. And then I just remembered Billy's. I think together if after tax and all. And taken out for PER, I think we brought him about $900 a month. We thought we were in Fat City.
Do you remember what you paid in rent back in the day when you were teaching?
The first time we were at Rube Jensen's house up there, in the first 3 months, we paid $75 a month in that building, in that house. And then, do you remember, I can't remember his name, but the high school counselor was in, Rube Jensen had those 2 houses, had the little one in the back, and the one that's just down from Uzoa Church.
Okay.
1 block down on that corner. Soda Creek run right by there. Or not, yeah, that's not Soda, yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah, Soda, but anyway, ran by there, and the little house was just, it was like a 1-room deal. And we were there and we got that for $75, and then we moved into the big house, we had to pay $85. And then we stayed there that year. The next year we rented a house from Wheeler, I can't remember his first, but Wheeler that owned the liquor store, Bottleneck. We moved in that apartment above the liquor store.
Oh, really?
And so we were there a year. And
You're talking right on Main Street?
On Main Street. We lived above the Bottleneck, and it was a different experience, but and then the next year then we bought the place over on Grand Street that we stayed until we left. you know, did a lot of remodeling, added to it and stuff. But we were there for, oh, I'm saying about 50 years. Well, we rented for 2 years, and then the rest of the time we're in that place. It was a little 2-bedroom house. It was, and the only thing, I'm not going to say the price, but it was the cheapest thing in Steamboat at that time, and we could afford it.
Location. It would
Yeah.
be, yeah. It was
So
a
anyway,
great
and
location.
then that was it. And I really enjoyed teaching at the old building. I mean, you know, I had that science room up there, and they had, we had, well, I mean, I taught science for, well, I think maybe 7, 8 years. I don't remember. Part of it was science, because I remember that I had all 7th and 8th grade for 2 years. And then I think that 3rd year, we might have cut it down and bringing in more teachers and stuff. And then I think I taught half-time, and then Bud gave me release time for several years.
Who else do you remember teaching with, or were there any particular teachers you were close to, or?
Well, you know, it was
Made an
such a
impact?
small staff, we were all pretty close to, everybody was, it was pretty close. And so all of the guys, they seemed to come and go. I was the only one that stayed on that floor up there. I remember the first year, Jack Miller was there for a couple of years. Then him and Judy came in and taught a year or two. And then they went to Las Vegas. And they left and then came back to Steamboat, and they were back in that building. Jack left and then came back. And Jack Miller was social studies, Earl Wise, social studies, Jim Mercer, social studies, Harlan Hines, special ed teacher, him and Judy Yamaguchi. And they had the special ed room was right down next to the auxiliary gym down in the hole there, across from the janitor's room. And I don't know, yeah, it was just, and then of course they made the old, the band room was out there on the, when they built it, that became the band room, and we had, for the most part, Dick Russell was the first band teacher that was there when I was there. And then I don't remember, I think there was one before Gino that came out there. I know that Gino was out in that building.
Yeah,
Gino Penapinto. And then I know that he moved with us out to, that would have been in the mid 80s or early 80s that we went out to the other place.
How was your working relationship with Bud Root?
Outstanding, because the thing I liked about Bud, he just he turned me loose and let me do my thing. And what I always wanted his philosophy, his philosophy was hire good teachers and get out of their way. And I followed that. And then the only thing, you know, when this middle school concept came up, and then it just changed. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. But again, it was good. I mean, I can see the good points of that too, you know.
So, as a disciplinarian, you were pretty intuitive about kids, which ones you could yell at a little, and which ones just plain needed a little encouragement, if I recall.
Yeah, it was, I was able to do that most of the time. We had some, you know, you look at the family situation, and you look at what some of them had to put up with, abuse, alcoholism, and all of that stuff. And so it was just, you know, one of the things that I noticed early on there in the early 70s, that building was the problems we had with split families. And some people make that work, some don't. And it really reflects how a kid feels about himself. And so yeah, I think most of the time I was able to. There, of course, made mistakes, sure.
Are there kids you still keep in touch with?
Yeah, there's quite a few of us. Well, just like coming down here at Michelle called and got these reservations here.
Mm-hmm.
And when she called, she didn't even know who she was talking to. But then we checked in yesterday, and then went in there, and there's Dana Duckles was there. She was in Michelle's class in school. And then the Hicks, I talked to Beth Hicks, Mrs. Hicks. I asked her this morning, she's been here 51 years, and then working in this motel for the Kohlers.
Yeah.
And the Kohlers, I don't know if they own it now, but they manage it. Because one of the students, Lindsay Kohler, she was working yesterday here. And then we run into, I conversed with, another one that, Small World, the house that we built in Fowler. Mm-hmm. We actually moved a modular in and put it on the basement. And all the cement work in the basement, you remember Craig Green?
Yeah.
He lives in Branson, Colorado, has a little construction outfit, and he came up, did all my concrete work. You talk about old students. I see a lot of them, and actually one thing that's kind of sad, on that state championship basketball team, all of them have passed except one.
That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, well, but it just, that's what happens, yeah.
Yeah. When your kids were tiny and when you guys first lived in Steamboat, what did you enjoy doing? Were the kids in sports or?
Well, for the most part, they were involved in the school activities, and of course we got into the skiing a little bit. In the first year, Billy and I took ski lessons over at the House and Hill. She broke her ankle the first with downhill skiing and had to teach PE in a boot for about 6 weeks, or more than that probably. But she never downhill skied after that, and then we got our kids into the little toots, all that stuff, and they skied a little. And then of course when my kids got in school, they got into sports, and I was glad by then that we had sports for ladies, because Michelle got to be part of that, and that was a real, you talk about the good and the bad and the changes, that needed to happen. Mm-hmm. And not women play half-court basketball. The old days they had, but girls weren't supposed to be able to handle and run up and down the court. See, ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I know we didn't have girls' sports till the mid-'80s, I think, here. Because I think, not the first one, but Becky Hicks was one of the first girl basketball coaches here at the high school. When she got hired, did she tell you that?
No, she didn't even mention coaching.
Yeah, she was coaching, and it was after she took that over, and I know I wasn't coaching high school basketball anymore. But then after a couple of years, then I started helping with high school football. And they would allow me to be an administrator and be an assistant coach. And I wanted to coach. I wanted to coach. You know, you build a relationship with kids.
Well, and so many kids still call you coach.
Oh yeah, that's how
Coach
I always
Harris.
was. I mean, and yeah, as far as asking your question, yeah, I keep in touch with some of the kids.
And some of the staff you keep in touch
And
with,
with Bud. Bud and I talk every week on the phone, and Bert and Winston and some of them, and some of them, you know, I don't see them a lot. Some of the people that we know through the church, you know, we keep in contact with them, and but outside of that, you know, not much. And you know, since we left in 2020 during the COVID thing, and we left here, and I've been back here twice, and they were both funerals.
Oh, that's not good.
Well, that's what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of it. And then it's always tough when some of your students, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's tough.
But you guys enjoy being back in Fowler?
Oh yeah, it's low key, kind of what we counted on, and I play golf twice a week, and we're active in the church, And there's like that congregation now, we're lucky if we have 20 in there. And guess what? They're all old. And there's been times I'm the oldest guy in there. So anyway, but that's the way it works.
And both your kids are teachers?
Both kids are teachers. Michelle is a retired teacher. She's subbing right now in Rangeley and Brunner, Utah. Greg still teaches middle school science, coaches volleyball and track at Erie Middle School.
So when you come back to Steamboat at times, what do you miss and what do you not like about Steamboat anymore?
Well, the thing of it is, none of it's, well, we had to leave. I got tired of the snow, but one of the reasons that we were up here was for the geography. I mean, this is a beautiful place. And you can't beat it. It's beautiful. And yesterday Michelle was out there on the deck taking pictures to show to her grandkids back in Rangeley where we were staying, and that view right out there, the river and trees, but the geography, and then the snow. Snow got to be too much. Snow's good as long as you play in it.
Yeah.
But when you don't play in it anymore, well, it was too much, and with Billy's mobility problem, we had to make some changes, and so you do. So we changed, and then we moved down. Oh yeah, we like it down there. We're active in the church, and there's a bunch of us old people get together every Monday night for taco night. I can go down and have a beer with my tacos, and we're with visit, and so it's good. And then Billy's brother and her sister are down there, and I have a brother in La Junta. I think he's moving to be closer to his grandkids, and they're over in Junction, and so I think he's going to move over there. But that's what he ought to do, to get closer to your grandkids.
Well, we should mention we are actually at the Rabbit Ears Motel. I don't even know if we said that, which is also a historical icon in Steamboat. So it's nice being here by the river and in this room. And I don't have any more questions. Anything you would say more about your time working at those old buildings, those two old buildings on 325 7th Street?
Yeah, a couple of things I'd like to mention. When we didn't have a track for junior high track for the kids to work out in, we had to have the sprints on the field. The distance kids ran the street around the block, and we had the field events over there by the band room. And there were only two of us coaching, so you had to kind of have pretty good supervision to get around and watch everything. Well, one time over there by that location over there, our band teacher had parked his car over there where we were throwing the shot. And one time a shot got away from him, went through the back window of the band teacher's car. And so yeah, those types of things I remember. And then for coaching football, it was a real advantage to not have to walk down to the rodeo grounds, because the situation that happened there, bunch of high school practice down there, and junior high, we'd dress at the old building, walk down to the rodeo grounds. Well, on the way, the kids would walk by that museum. It had a little picket fence around it. Remember the old museum building? They'd walk down that street and then come on across the river over there. Well, some of the pickets off the fence got knocked off with kids with helmets. They're carrying their helmet. And so we had a little discussion about, I had a bunch of kids come in, and I had two of those pickets off the fence. They had red paint on them. And so one Saturday, some junior high kids and I came down here, fixed the picket fence. Because it was pretty good. The kids were honest about it. The thing about it is they were bummed out. The high school kids lied about it, so they had white helmets, so it was all our fault. But anyway, just a little about that facility. That was, you know, it just got too small for the, and then it's really outstanding. They made the district offices down there, and then it's a lot of people use the community. I think they do, and they use that old building.
Yeah, I think it's been made good use of. I mean, that property, I think, goes back to like an old 2-story white school building that burned there in 1910.
Oh
and
boy!
So I think that one that got demolished in the 60s was built in 1911, and I believe the old junior high school, was built in 1918. So that property has a ton of history. And the old band room, which used to be a hospital.
Yeah.
And didn't we say one teacher that worked for you
Yes.
was likely born in that hospital?
And then like I said, Bill Baldwin told me I think he was delivered there, something about it. And when Bill Baldwin was high school, George Sauer, our superintendent, was a principal, high school principal.
Oh, jeez.
And that would have been in the 40s.
Yeah.
I think that was when Bill would have graduated. Well, late 40s probably. When he went to high school there, because he was back here in '65 practicing veterinary medicine. He had the hospital out there. So that was in '65, our first year. And then I'd talked to him several times since then, you know. And he would talk about, you know, having Mr. Sauer, you know. The other thing that's changed, there's very few of us that stayed our careers very long. You look how many middle school principals, look how that changed after Bud. And then I was only the principal for 7 years. And then there was, the rest of them were, how long did they last?
A few years each.
Two, yeah.
Yeah, not very
Who
long.
was your last principal?
You're gonna scare it right out of me. No, that's not fair. I'm gonna get there.
I know you'll think of it.
Jerry Buelter was the assistant principal.
And Bishop was the principal.
And Tim Bishop was the principal. When
And that was the last
I
one.
retired, yeah.
And then, okay, and then,
And in between,
then after, well, Sandy Hill.
Sandy Hall, yeah.
So we had, because of Bud's longevity, Bud and I worked together for 27 years.
Yeah.
And between Bud, and he lasted longer. George Sauer, superintendent of schools for, that longevity. And then another thing that changed, it wasn't as the old stable, you know, it just changes. And sometimes, like all things, some changes are good, some changes don't work out. You know, that's just how it works.
Exactly. Well, we thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
For doing this.
And I'll look forward to seeing the tape sometime.
That's right. And we can be sure that you get a copy.
Okay.
And let you know when it's ready to be published.
Well, that's great.
Thanks, Bob.
Well, thanks, Cheri and Dave.